If you'd like to see a nice bird cemetery, walk under a windmill sometime.
What happens after Donald Trump wins? What's next for America?
Okay, if you zoom in, you can see they slipped in the words, a unified right. Because, listen, none of these clips prove anything. And to give them a platform.
It was as if Jimmy Kimmel and Donald Trump were two peas in a pod, or perhaps a more appropriate comparison would be to say that their connection was similar to that of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. They just appeared to go together on a fundamental level. There was a time when they were like this, and it was in a planet that was not too far away from where we are now. When people were sitting around the campfire, they would engage in conversation with one another, tell jokes to one another, and most likely even share a Estmore or two with one another. As for the scenario, on the other hand, it started to smell a little bit, if we may use such expression. I don't know why you find it funny to make fun of our president who used to be so cute, Jimmy. I don't understand why you find it like that. Even though they have a relationship that is marked by both love and hatred, Jimmy was not pleased with the theatrics that Trump displayed in the courtroom. This was the case despite the fact that that relationship is characterized by both love and hatred. During the testimony of Michael Cohen, President Trump allowed himself to let out a loud fart, which resulted in the entire room being filled with laughter and spread throughout the entire structure. The moment Jimmy Kimmel became aware of the scenario, he was unable to control his need to poke fun of Donald Trump at the same time. He made a joke about how perhaps President Trump ought to increase the amount of vegetables that he consumes in order to avoid awkward situations such as this. He did this in an effort to avoid potentially embarrassing situations. Throughout the course of the day, people focused their attention on the fart that Trump had emitted.
His hands, they really are small. I thought that was a joke.
Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear. Hot dogs. Let's talk about hot dogs. I just had one, actually.
Song is familiar.
These folks, who were once close friends but have since become adversaries, have had a difficult year in 2024. This year has been a trying one for them. At the beginning of his program that was broadcast on March 18th, Jimmy Kimmel shared a joke that he had previously made at the Academy Awards. In it, he drew reference to the ongoing fury that Donald Trump has shown toward the media. The joke had been told by Kimmel during the Academy Awards that had been held in the past. Kimmel's presentation at the 2024 Academy Awards was cut short just before the announcement of the best film. This occurred during the course of Kimmel's hosting of the annual ceremony. This was done in order to provide Kimmel with the opportunity to read Trump's criticism of the event aloud. A statement that Trump had put on Truth Social during the Oscars stated that Kimmel was an incompetent host. Trump's remark was sent during the ceremony. During the course of the ceremony, the remark was posted. Jimmy went all out on his program in an effort to bring down Trump, and the nightmares that Trump is experiencing just keep coming. Jimmy's program was actually very successful. The efforts that Jimmy put in, however, were not in vain.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
You know, a lot of first ladies would go out, they want to be everywhere. They get angry at their husband because he's not introducing them.
Like, oh, Melania, oh, poor Melania. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for me. I can handle everything.
She loves the country. You know, when I do rallies, I have so many signs. We love our first lady. The people love her. They love the fact that she's not out there so much.
Nobody knows this stuff better than me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do, and income than I do. Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
An admitted thief. That is who they're hanging the entire case on. The other one happens to be a porn star.
And my dad screwed both of them.
The open criticism that Jimmy Trump directed on everyone, including Melania, Eric, Donald, and Barron Trump, was directed at everyone. Each and every member of the Trump family was involved in this. Following the testimony of Stormy Daniels, there was a noticeable rise in the amount of laughter that was taking place within the courtroom. Trump, on the other hand, did not back down from his statements either. The opposite side of the coin is presented here. Jimmy's wife was the target of his insults, and he suggested that Jimmy was suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. TDS. Jimmy's wife was the target of his attacks. Moreover, Jimmy was the victim of a personal attack that he launched on him. Examples that are representative of Trump's character. Because his fingers are so small, it is almost as if you can hear them tapping away on their own before you really notice them. Having said that, let's examine this circumstance in a manner similar to that of Jimmy Kimmel. According to Trump, the most significant error that Jimmy made was not when he just read Trump's truth on the air. Rather, it was when he failed to include the words "and the winner is" in the broadcast. To put it another way, taking into consideration that this is the true tragedy that has occurred in this locality, isn't it fair?
The American dream is dead.
The crowds outside, we can't get, it's not a very big thing for us. We don't really care that much.
There's no day with Donald Trump would be complete without a mention of the size of the crowd. If there's one thing we know about Donald Trump is that he couldn't care less about crowd size. I drove by there last week. I was in New York. There's no one there. You have no supporters in your hometown. There's one crazy lady outside his apartment building screaming at ghosts. That's all you got.
Within the context of this conversation, the subject of hush money and the allegations of criminal activity are not relevant whatsoever. Who can forget Trump's articulate appraisal of hosting abilities? It's like adding insult to injury. Could anyone possibly have forgotten that? According to the guy who is of the idea that in order to host a demonstration, it is necessary to speak incoherently for a significant amount of time throughout the duration of the demonstration. Nevertheless, Jimmy, despite the fact that you might have had a difficult evening at the Oscars, at least you were not impeached. This is a positive development, not once, but twice in total. The other side of the coin is that Trump was able to extract his vengeance against Jimmy in a manner that was consistent with that of a seasoned professional. Take into consideration the following. Jimmy is getting set to go on a camping vacation that will give him the opportunity to unwind and get away from the distractions that technology and worry present. In that case, it is factual. Upon his return to his apartment, he discovers that the former president has begun a Twitter rant that is only committed to assaulting him. This information is revealed to him immediately. If you came back from a vacation that was full of leisure and found out that your house had been entirely overrun by raccoons, you would be in for a world of pure chaos, which is something that you would agree with.
Trump was heard audibly cursing in the court. The judge had to ask his attorneys to tell him to stop. How careful does he have to be about his reactions?
This is 5 weeks sitting in the courtroom when he should be out reaching the American people and telling the American people what he would like to do for this country. And who shows up? Tens of thousands of people.
You want to get out there and you have all police. The only people that are let out there is the radical left lunatics. And they put our people 4 or 5 blocks away. There are a lot of them, too.
I'm going to start suing people. I don't know. And I think I could keep Trump awake during the trial.
Show up at Donald Trump's rallies. The Democrats hate it. There's not another person on the planet that can do that other than the Pope.
You, President Trump, have completely failed to hit the mark with regard to this particular matter. As a result of the disruption that occurred during a nature retreat that Jimmy had planned to take place over the course of a week, his plans were dealt the very worst possible blow. As a result of his successful efforts to rile him up, it is now time for him to unleash his funny rage against you, one joke at a time. This is something that he will do because you have been successful in making him angry. Given that this is the situation, what is Jimmy's motivation for bringing ketchup bottles into the courtroom in order to make fun of Trump? It is highly probable that he is pondering the following question as a consequence of the storm that transpired on Twitter: if Trump can dish out the sauce, then why can't I? Additionally, while we are talking the topic of courtroom theatrics, if Jimmy begins squirting ketchup all over the place, it will be the most saucy trial that has ever taken place since someone attempted to demonstrate that hot dogs are also sandwiches. This is because nobody has ever tried to prove that hot dogs are sandwiches. To put it another way, if Jimmy is going to bring ketchup, then at least we will all know who is to blame for finally adding some flavor to the legal system for the first time in a long time. The fact that condiments might be the subject of such controversy is something that one might not have predicted. When it comes to treatment, there are a lot of people who believe that laughter is the most beneficial method.
Father's been censored. My father, that man right there on the stage, my father didn't do a damn thing wrong. He's a great president, he's a great person, he's a great father.
And in case I didn't mention it 5 times already, he's my father.
She's a world-class liar. Just look at her pathetic email server statements. She's crooked Hillary. Don't you understand that? This is one of the most crooked politicians in history.
And did you notice what this guy is wearing around his neck?
Donald Trump's going to be the 47th president. Donald Trump's going to be the 47th president, and he's going to make America great again.
Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
This is the legacy of Hillary Clinton. Death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness.
Nevertheless, I am of the opinion that in this particular situation, laughter might just be ketchup. Take precautions to ensure that Jimmy does not confuse the gavel of the judge with a French fry of enormous dimensions. Please be on the lookout for it. On the other hand, James is particularly excited about the prospect of being incarcerated with Donald Trump. It is a well-known truth. He has declared that he intends to go to Rikers Island, and he has hinted that he has a plan for his trip there. He has also mentioned that he is going to go there. If I'm being really forthright, the mental image of Jimmy Kimmel playing the role of Trump's cellmate feels like a sitcom that is just ready to take place. It's like a sitcom that's just waiting to happen. Fathom a show called Locked Up with Laughter, in which Donald Trump and Jimmy Kimmel negotiate the ins and outs of jail life by offering each other wisecracks throughout the course of the episode. Would you be able to fathom such a show? In addition, I have a query concerning those miniature bottles of ketchup. As a consequence of their transformation into Jimmy's secret weapon, each and every dinner would be transformed into a heated confrontation. There is a possibility that Trump will ultimately end up with a ketchup stain on his uniform, which would serve as a permanent mark of shame. This particular scenario is a potential outcome. It is important to keep in mind that having tattoos outside of prison is not authorized. Regarding the items that Jimmy may provide to Trump before he goes to bed, he has a whole arsenal of comic stories that he may tell him to keep him up at night. These stories are sure to keep him entertained. One example of the kinds of things that can be used to haunt Trump's nightmares is making fun of his hair or repeating his notorious Cove Fefe tweet.
He never had an affair with Trump. I questioned whether she actually signed the letter because the signature looked suspect and sorely implied that she hadn't.
You couldn't find it. There's nobody like that. The look, the brain, the whole thing. We had a great relationship.
Prosecutor shows text between lawyers about Stormy Daniels' appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live.
We must hold accountable the nation which unleashed this plague onto the world. China.
These are just two examples of the kinds of things that might be employed. There is an abundance of material that is capable of accomplishing this. Taking all of this into consideration, it is reasonable to suppose that they would have each other to accompany them and keep them company, right? While Trump might regale Jimmy with stories about his glory days on The Apprentice, Jimmy could respond by telling highlights from his late-night rants. Trump could do this without Jimmy's knowledge. There is also the possibility that Trump will regale Jimmy with tales of his glorious days. Both of these ideas have the potential to be hilarious notions. They are currently engaged in a battle of wits while they are imprisoned, and it is important to note that they are the peculiar couple that we were not aware we needed. Additionally, if all other options are exhausted, they may always form a connection with one another by virtue of the fact that they both have an unfavorable impression of the food that is provided here in the prison. When it comes to the realm of incarceration, who would have thought that boxes of ketchup could possibly provide the maximum amount of equality that is even remotely possible? On the other hand, you should avoid bringing up Trump in the conversation because we are all aware of how he feels about anything that is not Trump brand. You should stop from bringing up Trump. When you consider the flip side of the coin, you can't help but worry how Jimmy will be able to withstand Trump's farts in court.
Told they didn't need to go down. It just went on, and they didn't have anything on her.
I would say she's in the 4 or 5 category. Right. I like the way she used to look. I don't like the way she looks now.
You look at the economy, the real economy, not the fake economy. Everything they touch turns to what?
Michael Cohen, his former fixer, who paid off a porn star days before the 2016 election.
Consider the following. There is no doubt that Jimmy is thinking to himself, if only Trump added a vegetable or two to his plate, maybe those emissions wouldn't be as deafening. Jimmy is currently dealing with Trump's farts in the courtroom. Here are some things to take into consideration. Someone who has had meals with Trump has corroborated that I've never seen him touch a vegetable, and his diet is pretty awful, except for golf. This information was provided by a friend who has had meals with Trump. Having said that, let's move on to talking about the peculiarities that Trump possesses when it comes to the cooking experience. According to the rumors, he is a major fan of steak, particularly when it is presented with those miniature bottles of ketchup. A special favorite of his is this particular item. Because he is so obsessed with meat, it is even stated that he consumes steak on 2 separate times every single day. This is because he is so infatuated with meat. What is perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the situation is the fact that he made a great deal out of the fact that he did not consume any cheeseburgers while he was traveling in another country. Whilst he went to India, for instance, where McDonald's only provides chicken burgers, he did not have any cheeseburgers whilst he was there. What a humiliating situation we find ourselves in. In essence, the decisions that Trump makes in the kitchen are a source of shame for the entire world. This is something that he ought to be ashamed of himself for. And in spite of the fact that the matter at hand is undoubtedly substantial.
Tell me about if Donald Trump does not win, What do you do?
I hope that I'm going to die.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
There's a furious reaction today after claims that President Trump called fallen American heroes losers and suckers.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
The fact that this hearing is being presided over by a former president is the item that is actually catching the attention of the media from a historical standpoint. Reputable individuals who are aware with the procedures that took place in the courtroom have stated that there have been rumors circulating that Donald Trump, well, contributed to the atmosphere with emissions that were not anticipated. The individuals in question have made it clear that they are aware of the events that have taken place. In point of fact, you did read that piece of information correctly. Trump is able to add farting to his arsenal of controversies just when you believe that the crazy meter has hit its highest point possible. This takes place at the same time as you are contemplating the fact that the peak has been attained.
Is only looking at Trump, yet Joe Biden took massive amounts more documents, even removed many boxes to Chinatown.
Never, ever call Chris Christie a fat pig, ever.
Trump's speech was so embarrassing, the statue of Robert E. Lee surrendered again.
We need Trump back to make our country great again. Our country, if we get Biden back in there, it's totally gone.
Sincerity compels me to admit that this is a region that has not been investigated. Even though we do not have any evidence to support this claim, there are a significant number of people who are considering the possibility that Trump farted in court. This is despite the fact that we do not have any evidence either. As an illustration, when you see smoke, you immediately form the assumption that there is either a fire or at the very least a foul fart. This behavior is quite similar to how you would react if you spotted smoke entering the room. Jimmy Kimmel now has a substantial amount of material to work with as a result of this. The absurd actions that Trump has taken in court have provided Kimmel with a lot of material to make fun of, which he can use to poke fun at Trump. Trump has the ability to maintain his capability to be a big joke despite the seriousness of the circumstance, even when he is in a courtroom that is filled with serious legal proceedings. This is Kimmel's way of making fun of him, but it also serves as a reminder that no one is too important to be given a good roasting. Kimmel is a comedian. Comedy is Kimmel's specialty. The fact that this caused him to go utterly nuts on Twitter is what Kimmel claims happened. People were tweeting about it, and they were using humorous hashtags like #FartInCourtGate and #TrumpStinks.
You know, all the action's happening in New York right now, where the Stormy Daniels roast of Donald Trump's penis continues for another day.
As you know, I've come here from New York, where I'm being forced to endure a Biden show trial, all done by Biden.
Just there for the money, you know, and for Mr. Trump to sit through all that.
Yes. When the last guy was here, you were shipping jobs to China. Now we're bringing jobs home from China.
There were a lot of people tweeting about it. These hashtags, due to the fact that there were so many jokes, it was impossible to keep up with everything that was taking place. The jury was painting in the courtroom when Kimmel made a joke about providing them with gas masks. This joke was made during the time that the jury was painting. The image was modified to put some stink lines behind Trump in order to get ready for the potential that anything similar may take place during the upcoming election. That there is no way to establish that Trump was the one who farted is much more concerning than the fact that there is no way to prove that he did it. Therefore, it was vital for Kimmel to persuade people to cease from using idiomatic nicknames such as Julius Farter, the Dealmaker's Dilemma, or You Have the Right to Remain Silent but Deadly. She did this because it was required, mostly due to the fact that we are unable to establish absolute certainty, which is something that you are probably already well aware of. On the other hand, it is also possible that from this point forward, we ought to begin referring to him as Gasolin Trump. Within the volatile realm of politics, there are very few individuals who have gained as much attention as Donald Trump has. This is not only the case with regard to the policies that they have implemented, but also with regard to the character that they have developed. Beginning with his rough management of the COVID-19 outbreak and continuing with his tough relationship with the government of President Biden, Trump's time in the White House was defined by a number of controversial and contentious issues. These issues began with the COVID-19 outbreak and continued with the management of the outbreak.
Apparently, with all that's going on, still smarting from my joke about him at the Oscars, you know.
He would make everybody on stage look bigger, stronger, and more glamorous, blah, 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 make America great again.
We're supposed to believe he handed a $130,000 check to a porn star for no reason.
There are a significant number of people who have been left scratching their heads or raising their fists in frustration as a result of the administration style of Donald Trump, who frequently appeared to thrive on turmoil. This turned out to be the result of Trump's approach to government. As a consequence of his actions and choices, a great number of people were left feeling that they had been let down. In particular, the method in which he dealt with the COVID-19 crisis has been the subject of a great lot of criticism among these individuals. He is accused of playing down the seriousness of the virus and failing to devise cohesive plans to stop its further spread. This is one of the allegations that has been made against him. A multitude of material for mocking has been discovered by those who are opposed to Trump in the middle of the turmoil that has taken place. It is possible that Jimmy Kimmel, who hosts a talk show that airs late at night, is the individual who has discovered the greatest fodder for ridicule more than anyone else. Kimmel was able to capitalize on Trump's gaffes and stumbles by translating them into punchlines that struck a chord with audiences all across the country who watched his program. This was made possible by Kimmel's razor-sharp wit and irreverent sense of humor, which allowed him to have the ability to capitalize on Trump's mistakes.
And big ratings drop as host of the Academy Awards. Oh, that's weird, because I read in the news that the ratings went up this year. And then he makes a leap to a completely different moment in the show when I read his dumb post and everybody laughed at him.
The most stylish president and first lady in our lifetimes are Donald Trump and Melania Trump.
Kimmel's enthusiastic attempts to poke fun at the former president at every chance led to the Kimmel-Trump narrative becoming a trademark of late-night television. It also became a fixture of late-night television as a result of Kimmel's commitment to making fun of the former president. The humorous jabs that Kimmel delivered struck a chord with viewers, who relished seeing the powerful pull down a peg or two. Kimmel's delivery struck a chord with viewers for a number of reasons. As Kimmel delivered his humorous barbs, they struck a chord with viewers. Whether it was Kimmel's imitation of Trump's famous hairstyle or his preference for Twitter tirades, Kimmel's comedy barbs struck a chord with viewers. But it wasn't just Trump's policies that proved to be a source of fodder for Kimmel's quips. It was also Trump's style, his temperament, and his larger-than-life presence on the political arena that supplied Kimmel with entertaining stuff. Kimmel's quips were a source of amusement for Kimmel. Kimmel did not exhibit any signs of hesitation when it came to taking aim at the individual who is the subject of the news stories. This is owing to the fact that Trump is a subject that lends itself well to satire due to the bombastic manner in which he conducts himself and his passion for controversy.
Listen, what my father did is something that no political figure has ever done in American history, and he changed this country, and he changed it for the better.
I know a lot about wind. I know a lot about wind. You have a better chance of being struck by lightning than hitting a whale with your boat.
You know, I know windmills very much. I've studied it better than anybody.
I understand the power of Facebook. Maybe better than almost anybody.
For the purpose of making fun of President Trump and his administration, Jimmy Kimmel went to extraordinary lengths. In the course of his campaign to make fun of them, he engaged in a wide range of activities, including impersonations and parody songs. Kimmel's comic talent knew no limitations when it came to making fun of the 45th president, whether it was replicating his tweets as poetry or envisioning Trump's inner monologue during a particularly ugly press conference. Kimmel's comedic talent knew no bounds. Kimmel's comedic genius was unbounded and unexplored. There were no limits to the creative potential that Kimmel's comic act possessed. Because Trump was not the type of person to take ribbing like this lightly, Kimmel and other late-night shows that dared to parody Trump were frequently the objects of Trump's retaliatory assaults. Kimmel was just one of the shows that Trump targeted. Kimmel was one of the hosts that he harassed on a regular basis, and he went after him. Kimmel's comedic fire was only fueled by Trump's thin skin and drive for retribution.
Introduced into evidence at the criminal trial for a president of the United States.
There are two other women now who claim that there'd been sexual harassment.
They probably do love their names splashed across the front pages.
As he reveled in the opportunity to prod the former president into ever more ludicrous reactions. Kimmel's comedic fire was only stoked further by Trump's desire for revenge. Kimmel's comedic fire was stoked by Trump's ability to get away with anything and his thirst for retribution. Kimmel was not going to take the chance of missing out on this opportunity whatsoever. Kimmel and Trump's drama was played out on the national stage, and each volley of jokes and barbs helped to further cement their place in the annals of political humor. Additionally, the drama was played out on the public stage. This is the series of events that led to the drama being played out in this manner.
Even when he's a private citizen, they're still trying to impeach him. I mean, that's how kind of deep this whole thing goes, and they want to tar and feather the man.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter is a wonderful man.
I understand healthcare now especially very well.
I know more about renewables than any human being on earth.
Nobody knows more about polls than me. I know more about courts than any human being on earth.
At a time when there is a great deal of uncertainty and change, Kimmel viewed this as an opportunity to hold those in authority accountable and to deliver some much-needed laughter. He also saw it as a chance to provide some necessary humor.
There's a little box where you can leave a message from Melania. It says, we want 100,000 responses now, and of course a button to make a donation to St. Valentine's Legal Defense Fund. It's Donald Trump posted a romantic message today. He wrote, Biden is not too old, he's too incompetent. As close as he gets to telling somebody he loves them. Dear Melania, I love you. Even after every single indictment, arrest, and witch hunt, you never left my side. The last time Trump endorsed a blonde this unqualified for office was when he endorsed himself, actually.
He thought that this was a chance for him. On the other hand, the presidential administration of Donald Trump, which was marked by anarchy, was but another chapter in the never-ending drama that is his presidentship.